our customers together to kind of pave the way for the future for UAV, and this is a very interesting place for us to be.
Tras consolidar sus cuotas en el mercado doméstico, DJI dirigió rápidamente su mirada hacia el mercado exterior, logrando resultados fructíferos. Hace poco, DJI, que ya lleva años ocupando el 70% del mercado mundial de los aparatos aeronáuticos no tripulados, concluyó una nueva ronda de financiamiento valorado en $75 millones, totalizando un valor estimado de $8.000 millones. ¿En qué se basa DJI para que las marcas chinas disfruten de fama mundial? ¿Cómo ha elaborado su estrategia de ampliación en el mercado internacional?
One of our biggest markets is United States, but we're seeing huge potential in other parts of the world, specifically in where we are in Asia. You know, obviously you have China, which is, you know, a region, a huge place on its own, with different demographics, lots of cities, different tiers. But in particular, if we look at other places in China, we have Japan, Korea, Hong Kong is also one of them, which we're putting a lot of attention and resources into these markets. So if we look at Korea, for one example, Korea was the place where we had our first overseas flagship store. So this is a strategic investment for us to have retail touch point to engage people in Seoul, in Korea. To have a flagship store is not about selling products, it's more about the actual experience. Because aerial technology is not like a smartphone or notebook where you can really try it out when you're at the store. Aerial technology is about really understanding, how it is to feel when you fly the drone. When you get behind the controller, what do you see? Or talking to the pilot, or looking at other people's work to get inspiration. So having the flagship store is a very important strategy for us in terms of the experience and also in terms of the retail. So we had our first one in Shenzhen, the first overseas one in Korea, outside of China, and then the third one was in Hong Kong. And then just last month, we launched one in Shanghai. So now we have 4 flagship stores that's operated by DJI. So having this is important to actually grow, especially in the Asia market, where really it's hard to, where it's a very dense area, we're in a metropolis. To really just go out to your backyard and fly, that's not really possible for everybody. So having that in-store experience, that flying cage, and being able to see and touch and ask questions, that's really important. So Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, these are places where we're putting a lot of effort. If you look at Japan, Japan is actually, in terms of operation and size, it's also one of our biggest operations in Asia, outside of China. We have about 3 different offices, customer service, business development, sales and marketing, even an R&D team that does, specializes in camera work and lenses and sensors and whatnot. So we have different pockets of kind of expert teams in different areas. And another area, that we look forward to doing more in is actually Latin America. So Latin America is, we've started some work last year in Latin America. And, by talking to the different, our dealer network, understanding the customers, Mexico, Brazil, Chile, these are kind of 3 markets that we're starting to do more work in, and we're going to do more in 2017. So you're going to see a lot more things from DJI in terms of expanding our dealer network, educating customers, this is important, and also showing our technology to governments, NGO, so that they could also understand the technology and what it can do for specific markets and countries. It's a very competitive landscape, and there is great companies doing great things in all different countries. I can't speak on behalf of other companies, but at DJI, I think we've got a head start. That 10 years of flight experience, building the technology, whether it's camera or programming, testing, all of that, we have a head start, and that's why we're in a great position in this market. Having said that, you're seeing a lot of competition. outside of China, inside of China, even within Shenzhen, you probably have 100 somewhat, startups that are looking at this. But, it will take some time. Making something fly in the air, that's great. We believe, three things. It's safety, reliability, it's number one. Number two is making the technology accessible, whether this is through online channels, retail channels, making it easy for people to understand about the technology. That's about accessibility. Number three, it's just making it very easy to use. If a technology is hard to use, nobody wants to, understand it or use it for their work. So these three things, we're trying to do. I think it's from day one, and we've been, applying this to all of our technology. And I think this is what is making our technology different from other, brands out there. Well, if you look at potential in terms of where we see the customer interests are, in America, this is our biggest market so far right now still. There's still a lot of places in America that we're still growing. If you look at our retail partners in America, we have a lot of chain store partners, RC partners. But really, looking beyond that, there is the photographers, there's the lifestyle users, and these are areas that we'll continue to grow and to penetrate. If we look back at Asia, for example, which is slightly different, we're talking to a lot of the RC enthusiasts, the guys who are already flying the drones, but we're also seeing a lot of the interest in different sectors in terms of the construction industry, in Hong Kong, for example, and in Japan, the agricultural industry. And if we move over to Latin America, speaking to my colleague, mining area is a huge thing. Recreational, they're still doing a lot of education about that. So you see different pockets of potential and customer interest in different parts of the world. So we can't really say that, this particular demographic or this particular age group or gender group is our particular target, which each market is very different. And I think back to my point about how this technology could be used is basically the end user finding ways on how it could be used to impact themselves, to do their work, for their lives and whatnot. And we're just creating the tools for them to do that.
En los últimos años, a medida que mejoran constantemente las ventajas económicas, operativas y de seguridad de los aparatos aeronáuticos no tripulados, ha aumentado notablemente la demanda sobre este tipo de aparatos para su uso civil. El aparato aeronáutico no tripulado se ha convertido en uno de los sectores con una perspectiva más promisoria y un desarrollo más rápido, por lo cual estamos acogiendo la era de expansión a gran escala de los aparatos aeronáuticos no tripulados.
We really have to understand each market when we are in this market, and I'll use Latin America as an example. We started last year in 2016, starting to look at how do they perceive this technology, right? By talking to some of the retail channel partners, and also talking to some of the the government who may be interested in seeing this. And one great example I'll use is during the Olympics. We saw that there were areas where in the stadiums would be a area with high safety concerns if UAVs were flown in that area, especially during the Olympic Games. So we tested our technology to make sure that those areas were actually fenced off, so geo-fenced, so that when people are using our technology trying to fly in those areas, they weren't able to go in and endanger the lives of other people. So we're working with the Brazil government to adapt that technology. So after that experience, we've got a lot of interest in kind of really understanding why is DJI different, and what's all the different brands out there, and how could we use this for our country. And one very interesting point was the safety aspect of our technology that interested a lot of businesses and also people and governments. One of the technology that we have is the geofence, or something is called a no-fly zone. So this technology, which is built in, enables us to prevent people from flying into areas with sensitivity. And this could include an airport. So if you're flying towards an airport, this will enable the drone to actually descend. So by understanding this technology, public, government, enterprises are keen to see, oh, actually this is quite interesting in what we do. Another example I'll use, which is a company that we've spoken to who does actually inspection, in Brazil of buildings, right? And the reason why they chose DJI is because we have the front obstacle sensors, which when you fly into an object or a building, it keeps a certain distance. And he's able to go really close up and get that precise shot